Hey guys, it's Beth. Welcome to this week's show. I am so glad that you are here as always. Thank you for continuing to go on this journey with us. I love that you show up each and every week on Remorselessly Biblical and that you are also living your lives remorselessly, which means what? I feel like this is a test at this point, right? Remorseless means without guilt, in spite of wrongdoing. So no matter what you've done, no matter what choices you've made, no matter what people have labeled you as, no matter how many times you've gotten stuck along the course of your journey, you still have mattering and worth and value. We are all made in the image of God. And because of that, He loves us absolutely unconditionally. Jesus obviously paid the price. We know this, right? And yet life is still hard. But here we are sharing it together. So I'm just grateful for you, each and every one of you that continue to show up and just listen into the stories that the folks on this show share with us, right? So this week we have Brigitte Donoho, and she is from, not Donahue, Donoho. I'm terrible at names, you guys. Brigitte Donoho, okay? She's going to forgive me because she's super sweet. She's on the east side of the state in Michigan, and I haven't met her until moments ago when she shared with me. I'm like, hey, where in the world are you? She goes, oh, I'm in Michigan. I said, that can't be right, because I'm in Michigan, but I love it. This is, again, what God does, right? He brings people along the course of our journeys into our paths, into our sort of ecosystems, and He's like, hey, you need to meet this person. I'm not so sure often why God has me meet recording artists and songwriters, because I can't carry a tune at all. But Brigitte has an amazing voice, an amazing heart for God. She is a mom, again, a worship leader, a songwriter, recording artist. So you guys, would you please do me the favor of welcoming Brigitte Donoho to the show? Thank you so much for joining us today on Remorselessly Biblical. I am really glad you're here, especially now after we found out that we're both sitting in Michigan.
Michiganders, right? Such a small world.
Can't even believe it. One of the things that I always tell our viewers and listeners on the show is how I met the people that I'm spending time with and sharing space with, because I'm a big believer in God's providence and that Amen. He brings people through our life, to teach us the things we're supposed to learn. Just the right time, just the right reasons. And so some of the folks I've known for a long time, some people I've never met in person, some people I'm like, oh, you're on the east side. So can you share with our listeners and viewers just a little bit about how we got connected and what's on your heart overall in terms of, I've read about you, I've learned about you, but just anything that you would like to share in terms of your messaging to people who are out there listening.
Sure. Well, we got connected through our mutual friend, Julie. And she's amazing, and she connected us, and it's so cool, the coincidence that you're in Grand Rapids and here I am in Ann Arbor. I love how God does little God winks like that and connects people, and especially when you have no idea pre-meeting them how things are going to work out. So that's amazing. My heart is just really to see people impacted by the gospel through music. That's what my heartbeat. I am a worship leader, a songwriter, and I just love to see just the chains of bondage fall off of people when they step into the presence of the Lord. That's really my heart. I love songwriting. I love singing, and I'm just a mom and a worship leader, a wife.
I love it. How did you get into music? Is this it? Obviously I'm also a big believer that God gives us these spiritual giftings, and nobody here would want to hear me sing because they'd probably all keel over. It's bad. It's really bad. I don't care how many walls are in the shower, how many echoes are happening. I'm always off tune unless it's AC/DC. Yeah. So I don't think that's what you're talking about here, but did you just grow up with this gift, and sort of did people in your life kind of cultivate it and encourage you on this path?
So I grew up singing as long as I can remember. I was just one of those kids. I remember growing up, I wanted to be Gwen Stefani. As a little tyke, as a little girl listening. Yeah. And I said, that's what I want to do. And, I never really, it was more like a dream, but I didn't really know how the dream would come to fruition. And then for a long time, I didn't serve the Lord. When I was a teenager, I kind of didn't want anything to do with the Lord. And so worship leading and writing songs for God was so out of, just not even in the spectrum of anything that I saw happening with my life and my future. And so it kind of grew organically. Once I came back to the Lord, I started writing songs after I got married. And what's so funny is my husband didn't even realize I played the guitar.
Wait, when you were dating,
So
he had no idea you were musically inclined?
We were married, but I had put it down for a few years. Like I was doing just life, I guess.
Yeah.
And I hadn't really he always knew I could sing, but I hadn't picked up a guitar or really done anything. And then we had, and this is just a little side story, but we had a college and career service that started up at our church very organically, and they needed a worship leader for that service because I don't know who, someone was out of town, just something corresponded. And I said, well, I play the guitar. And my husband's like, you what?
I love this. He's like, who, you play the guitar?
I mean, just here. Yeah. He's like, you do? And he knew I played a little bit, like that I had done a little bit of lessons, but not like I didn't even have a guitar of my own. I had to go and borrow my father-in-law's guitar. And then I just kind of got thrown up there and led worship. And then I became the worship pastor for those Saturday evening churches when we were very young. And then from there, I just started kind of writing more Christian songs and said, I really think that this is where I see the trajectory of my life going. But if it hadn't been for the Saturday night services, I don't think that it ever would have happened that way. Because it was kind of a launching, like, okay, in the midst of chaos, it blossomed. And I feel like it's so often that way with the Lord. We're on the edge of stepping out onto unknown surfaces. And when we take that first step, he catches us.
I love that you said that. And it's so easy to forget that. And it takes so much deep faith to actually step into that and do it. And I love that what you said in the midst of chaos. And my husband and I talk about this all the time. We're just go, go, go a million miles an hour. And we're out of our comfort zones and we're doing things that we never planned for. We never thought we would be doing. I serve in a nonprofit arena now. I never thought I would be here. I work in a homeless shelter in Grand Rapids. I was in corporate before that. It's just the way that God brings us along, even when sometimes we go kicking and screaming, or even when sometimes, our spouse is like, wait, you play guitar? So here's my question. Yeah. Did he end up being like a groupie out in the audience?
Oh, he's still like my biggest groupie. I love
that.
Like, I love him so much. No, he's an amazing sound tech.
Oh, cool.
Like he's super, he's got just a natural ear for it. And so he helps me with all of, my setup, my sound stuff, even when I'm leading worship live on Facebook Live, like he got all the gear for that, and all of my events, he makes sure that I'm all set. And so God really, he knew what he was doing when he put it.
So I want to go back to you knew you could always sing. And did you, like when you were in high school, were you playing instruments? Like, were you in the proverbial band? What did you do with your skills growing up?
So when I was growing up, my mom wanted me to take up an instrument. And so I remember at 8 years old, I wanted to play the guitar. And so I did lessons, not really thinking too much about it. I didn't really write songs. I didn't do a whole lot. I was in jazz band in middle school, but as far as high school, not really. I just sang, but I didn't think that would be the trajectory of my life. But I do have a pretty interesting story. When I was 8 years old, I remember getting a prophetic word from my guitar instructor. And there's no rhyme or reason why he would have given me the word, because I was not a very promising student. I remember and I can look back now. I remember I beat the mess out of my guitar to where the back of it started falling apart, and we had to super glue it. And he told my mom, because we didn't have a lot of money at the time to get a new guitar, but I still wanted to keep playing. And he said, the Lord told me that I need to give her this guitar, like this brand new guitar. And he said, I heard the Lord say that she's one day going to sing songs of deliverance, and it's going to impact countless amounts of lives. And so I knew it was the Lord, because I remember the word. And I remember my mom telling me about the word when I was going through my troubling times, like, you're going to sing songs of deliverance, you're going to play for the Lord, and you're going to see shackles fall off people. I'm like, okay, whatever, because I was so bound up myself. So I think
Yep.
it's so interesting how you look back through just the trajectory of your life and you can see God's fingerprint saying, oh no, no, I got something for you. You can't go too far. I'm going to reel you back in.
Yes, yes, I love it. And that is the message of the show. So many times I'm just a big advocate for people who think that they're lesser than, or think that the world has ostracized them, or that they don't matter. And because of their past choices, that God has nothing planned for them. I'm like, you just got to read like the stories of, I don't know, everybody in scripture,
Everybody.
right? Like David, I pick a person. And so I love reading about King David when, you know, he couldn't necessarily be used for rebuilding the temple, but if you go to Israel today, I mean, he is the most revered king. He was leading at a time, he ruled the entire Mediterranean. And so God's like, look, you might mess up because I gave you free choice. I gave you free choice because I love you and I want you to choose and I want you to grow and transform and turn into the people that I made you to be. But I still have something for you. Yeah. It's okay. You're not like totally washed up at age 16 when you decide to, I don't know, like start playing, I don't know, AC/DC as opposed to, you know, sing Israel.
Right.
Or whatever. You know.
Exactly.
Which I saw you toured with them. Did you do that?
With who?
I don't know. I'm reading your things over here. Like there are people that I know and people that I don't know. I'm reading all of the Sanctus Reels on here and like Jessa Anderson and like all these people. Jeremy Camp. Of course I know Jeremy Camp.
Yeah,
I don't
we
know
opened
personally.
for him a few years back when we first started out. So
that had to be a whole process too, right? Like just getting connected in the music industry. So did you have people that mentored you in that journey?
Not really. I kind of just had to do a lot of research on my own and a lot of hard lessons, I guess you would say, and a lot of even when I got into Christian music, even finding my own voice because I thought I had it, and then I'm like, okay, well, I don't really see myself going in the mainstream CCM side of it anymore. I see more of prophetic worship, and I see more of this lane, and so it's I think a lot of it is just going with the process and letting God develop what he wants, because I listened to songs from 10 years ago and I'm like, oh wow, like that is totally different from what I'm doing right now, but it's still wonderful and it's still gonna impact people and bless people. But it's amazing how God, you know, changes and evolves what you are doing through time.
Yes. And that's really the most encouragement that I think any of us can hear and really just hang on to, right? Like, God, please give me the peace that passes all understanding, because we often don't understand what we're doing as we're doing it. And it's not until we've got the beauty of years and experience and we can look back, you know, and have perspective and say, okay, in hindsight, now I kind of get it. This puzzle looks like an actual picture now, instead of me just doing these little pieces here and there. But eventually, I really do feel like if we're doing things for the benefit of others, and if we're doing things the way that God created us to be, with our giftings and our passions, and something that just is like this sort of like internal guide, i.e. Holy Spirit, right? Which is living, breathing, active inside of us, who's always kind of saying, do the thing. You know you love music, or in my case, you know you love to write, you know you love words, use the words, use your gifts, use your guitar, pick it up, you know? And when you do that, so many people become blessed, because it's this creation story that God's like, I'm going to bless all of my children through each other. It's just this.
Oh yeah.
I never understood that. And I just think the more life that I have, the more time on this earth that I can experience, the more that I really see it every day with people that I meet. I'm just like, this is awesome. This is kind of like a cool thing every day. I don't know, life, waking up, you know?
Waking up, right.
Yeah.
And you never know who you're going to meet and how, you know, I almost picture it as like a quilt, and we're all knit together, and there's different colors and there's different fabrics in the quilt, but it's all one. We're all one body in Christ. And, you know, it's just beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. Here's my one guitar story that I'll share with you. So my dad plays. He's retired now, and he, you know, you get bits and pieces from when your family tells you, oh, like before you have a memory. So when my parents were married, and they were married very, very young, they had no money, and my dad was working like in a factory. And so at night he would go play in a band at some bar, someplace, I don't even know where, but he would just play guitar. And I said to my mom, how did he learn? He's like, oh, I don't know. He's very musical. He plays trumpet. He does whatever he does. And I didn't know this about my dad. Kind of like your husband didn't know this about you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait, Dad, like the guy that puts on a suit and ties, actually, he can like rock out? I don't understand this. I've never seen him do it. And so years later, I looked at him. I think I might have been in my early 20s. And I'm like, Dad, why didn't you ever teach me to play? I would have learned. And I said, I could have been Sheryl Crow. Whatever. And he looked at me and he goes, honey, family preservation. He's like, you have no patience. He's like, I don't know that I could have shown this to you and still been your dad, and we still would have had like a conversational relationship.
Sure.
Yeah. I did play piano for a while, like when I was super young. And and then I found sports, and my competitive nature, I had to like pick one. I'm like, well, I don't know, sitting down every day, it's very disciplined. And I didn't have the inherent giftings. I mean, I kind of knew, but I had to work at it. I'm like, I'd rather just go on the basketball court. That's what I'd rather do. Today, as a 48, almost year old woman, I would be like, I can't, like, I'm not playing ball out there. I'm not in the WNBA. I would love to sit down at a piano and play a piece, but I don't have that anymore. So I'm really wowed by people who continue to do that craft and continue to sing and praise God through the gifts. It's almost like a giving back to the Lord, right? Like, thank you so much. I want to sing your praises through this gifting that you've given me. I think it's beautiful what you do.
Right. Well, it's, he's the gift giver.
Yes.
And so when you have a gift, you don't hold on to it, you give it back.
Yeah.
And so everything that he blesses you with, it's like the story of the talents. You want to multiply the talents. You don't want to just hide them and say, nobody's going to know about this, which I did for a little while.
Yeah, right.
But God wouldn't let me forever. So, he loves to see his work and what he's put in you multiply to bless others, because that's what it's all about.
Absolutely. And I know you have 2 little girls, right? Are they both girls?
2 little boys.
Oh, I'm wrong. Okay. So you've got 6th grader, a 2nd grader. Is that right?
2nd grader and a 6th grader.
Okay.
Yep, 2 boys.
So
busy boys.
Yeah. And do you homeschool? Is that also right?
I do.
Okay.
We're looking into possibly Christian school at the moment. We've been doing it throughout the pandemic, so we're kind of letting the Lord lead that one. But
do you teach them music?
Bits and pieces. My oldest son really wants to play the drums. I don't know a thing about playing the drums, so I can't really help him in that department. But he's really good as far as self-taught. Like, he watches YouTube videos and picks up a lot of beats, and he hopes to one day play. He just joined the youth group. So down the line, that's his aspiration, to be able to one day play for them.
Very, very cool. Well, I am extremely grateful that we met and that you joined us here. Where can people who are watching and listening, where can they find you to connect with you and your music?
Anywhere online, BrigitteDonoho.com, Instagram, Brigitte Donoho, Facebook, Brigitte Donoho. Okay. I just joined TikTok recently, trying that one out.
Yeah, my daughter.
But basically anywhere online.
Okay, awesome. Brigitte Donoho. So, and you have your website as well. I'll put all that in the show notes here. Somebody mentioned TikTok to me. I'm like, I am way too old for TikTok. I don't know about this.
Oh, yeah. It's a different machine for sure. Like, I'm an elder millennial. So I'm like, I don't know about this. And, I'm not going to go and do a bunch of like crazy dance things, but it is nice to get worship music out there and try to.
For sure. I've listened to what you have on your website, and honestly, God has gifted you. I heard your voice and I was like, okay, just wow. Just wow. For people that are not, yeah, absolutely. Do you know Michelle Pilar? She was on the show recently. Do you know who she is?
I don't know, but I'll look
for sure.
Up.
She lives, I think, in Tennessee, and I didn't know her either. We were connected through, I want to say it might have been Julie as well. And so, and she just got this incredible story. She's in her 60s, and she shares, and she just really spent a lot of time kind of on the circuit, right? Like, so she knows the whole Christian music scene, but it was a long time ago, and she shared what she learned through that. But the one thing that I heard from her is just her incredible passion to sing praises to God. That doesn't go away. So I'm just grateful that you do that every day. Thank you again, Brigitte, for joining us here. I will connect.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me, Beth.
Okay, you guys, thank you for joining me on this week's episode. How great was Brigitte, right? She's just so sweet, and she's just so real, and she's got this amazing gift. I love the part specifically where she's like, my husband had no idea that I play guitar. I love when we find things out about one another that we previously had no idea about. That's, I think, a testament of humility. I have not actually heard Brigitte play guitar in real time. I plan to. But I'm sure it's amazing, just like her voice. So you guys go to her website, check her out, look in the show notes. You'll be able to find her there. And again, if I can help you in any way, let me know as well. I'm always happy to do that. BethFisher.com, personal and professional development coaching. I'm happy to do that if you guys are stuck along the course of your journey, or don't really know what your giftings and skill sets are. I mean, Bridget clearly knows, but some of us don't. And some of us really get hung up on that. And so I've lived through that. I had no idea what mine were. In fact, one time I remember saying to my mom, I think God ripped me off. I don't really have any spiritual giftings. And she laughed, as moms do, and she said, honey, you can talk to anybody. I'm like, that's not a thing, Mom. And she said, yeah, I could be up on stage and there would be nobody out there and I would still feel like I need to grow. She said, you can go out and talk to anybody anytime about Jesus and about anything because you love people. God made you to connect with people. So I love this. I love connecting with you each and every week. I love the folks that we bring on the show each and every week. So I'm just encouraging you to continue to show up on your journeys remorselessly and live as God created you to be without guilt in spite of wrongdoing. Okay, guys, thanks again, and I will see you here